Good morning, Matt Waldman. How are you this fine day?
Good morning, Bob Harris. I'm doing pretty good. We're up late last night.
Oh,
My old boy decided that he wanted to go run around and bark at the moon at about 4 o'clock this morning. So
tonight, go out and bark at the moon again. It's a rare super moon kind of thing going on. I like to take a few minutes out of my busy schedule to observe these things, celestial bodies, if you will. Not long, just a minute. I just want to see it.
I like that I actually, it's kind of funny. Animals can be smart when he runs outside and barks. We've gotten him to stop. So like last night was funny because he was barking at something, but it was like he was whispering. It was like these little like light barks, like knowing that it was dark and he can't bark loud, which I thought was pretty funny at 4 o'clock in the morning. So anyway,
Well, we are barking loudly. He's Matt Waldman, you know him from the Rookie Scouting Portfolio and the Football Guys. You can follow him on the X Machine at Matt Waldman. I'm there at Football Die Hard. My name's Bob Harris. We both ply our trades at Football Guys as well. You can find my daily update podcast every morning at like 5:30. Get up early; it's well worth it, I can assure you. Also, my fantasy notebook every week. So. A lot going on, man. We have got these exhibition games, and we are all reacting, overreacting, sometimes maybe even underreacting in my case, because I downplay pretty much everything I see. Probably more than I should in some cases. One thing that I know is going to be near and dear to your heart, Michael Penix Jr. No playing time this weekend. Did you find that confusing?
no, not at all. Because really, you look at this, and they're probably going to keep three quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins coming off of that Achilles and Penix being a rookie. So they had to decide between two final quarterbacks and let them play a little bit more. And on top of that, I think people look at this and say, well, Penix is a rookie, he needs reps. But there are lots of examples of quarterbacks who got those reps and never amounted to anything. Reps can be a factor, but they are not the factor in development, especially in the preseason where you're facing vanilla defensive coverages and lots of personnel changes. So if you know you like what you see from Penix right now, you save him for when you may actually need him.
That is the correct answer. Fuck the confusion. Penix, like they drafted him for a reason, right? They drafted him knowing there would be a controversy for a reason. And by the way, they went out, they got their edge rusher that everyone was mad they missed out on. They grabbed another safety. This team is making a
Justin
push.
Simmons, IDP special, like the Brian Dawkins of old. That's the guy. I have him on every IDP team.
And I have some shares of Matthew Judon as well. So, and this team, but those moves signify this team's making a push, making sure you have a quarterback in case something happens to your slightly aging quarterback coming off a torn Achilles tendon. Seems like a pretty smart thing to do. I think we'll look back on this in hindsight and say, why were you all so upset about it? Yeah. Dillon Johnson and Kimani Vidal. There's been some reports kind of downplaying their importance in the big scheme of things. Matt Waldman, were they written off too soon for fantasy drafters? Dillon Johnson taking the Panthers by storm. Kimani Vidal, it seems like he was everyone's darling coming in. I'm going to throw out this one. Fuck them. And here's why, right? Like unless, right, there's going to be circumstances where you don't, but if you're playing in a regular redraft league, fuck them. Yep. They're waiver wire watch list guys. And maybe, not locks to make teams. So the Daniel Popper report that came out that basically, caused people to be dismissive from the Athletic of Vidal reflects what I've been told since day one. Joe Reedy has told me 3 times, hey, special teams guy. And Dillon Johnson, granted, he looks great. A lot of people look great in preseason, but, if you look at the people who cover the team on a daily basis, he's still behind Chuba Hubbard. Knee injury, not an issue. Obviously, they're all behind Jonathan Brooks once he's healthy, but also behind Miles Sanders and also behind Raheem Blackshear. So I'm saying, fuck him. Where are you at?
See, I would agree with you based on the actual writing of the question or the verbiage of the question.
So you mean I set you up for failure here?
Well, no, because they're written off too soon for fantasy drafters. But if you're a fantasy manager and you want to last longer than your draft, then, like you said, they're waiver wire guys you want to be aware of. Because let's remember, Terrell Davis was probably about to not even be on the team until he performed well on special teams. Nick Chubb was a second-round pick, was covering punts as a rookie and having a punt bounce off him in the Steelers game, and people saying, oh, that guy's not even good on special teams. What are we going to do with him? So Injuries happen. Isaiah Crowell's a good example of a player who Dion Lewis and Jamal Lewis both got hurt, and they had to put him in the third preseason game in the fourth quarter, and they were like, oh, we didn't even know, because those guys don't get reps. And Johnson and Vidal aren't going to get the majority of reps, but if they're called upon, they have the talent to produce. So, yeah, as fantasy drafters, fuck them. As fantasy managers after the draft, on your waiver wire list, and should be on your short waiver wire list.
Right. I mean, so I've been playing a long time, and the list of names of guys that probably should have been on your waiver wire watch list included Olandis Gary, league winners.
Yep.
Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Dominic Davis, Nick Goings, Steve Slayton, Peyton Hillis, Arian Foster. Remember, he was nothing until he was something.
Spencer Ware.
Justin Forsett, Spencer Ware. C.J. Anderson did that multiple seasons. David Johnson. He wasn't like going great guns in Arizona early on. It wasn't until late in the season, right? Alex Collins, a league winner for you in Baltimore, coming out of nowhere, a free agent addition on that team in the middle of the season. And it goes on. We could go with more recent guys. I mean, Cordero Patterson, anybody? I mean, So waiver wire watch list is the thing. And I also think there's something, to be said about the special teams. We don't know how this return thing is going to work out, right? Maybe teams just totally, say, we're just going to kind of do it the way we always did it. But more special teams players seems like something teams are going to be keeping early on. Many of those are going to be running backs. And if the attrition hits, opportunity is going to be there for them. So, yes, waiver wire watch list guys for sure. Here's a guy that's not on the waiver wire watch list, Matt. Caleb Williams, top 12 fantasy quarterback this year. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm feeling it, but fuck where his ADP is. To me, it feels like with how tight the position is, and considering that his offensive line still isn't the strength of his team, you're talking about a rookie dealing with that amount of pressure on a regular basis, and as good as he shows that he can be, it's still not the ideal situation for the value that he's at. So somebody's going to take the risk, draft a really good team, and they're going to win with him, and they're going to brag about that. And I would say in practice it will probably work, but in theory, if you're going to play, inside the lines, then I would say you can wait for other quarterbacks and probably go for there.
Matt, right now he's quarterback 15 in average draft position, right? So that's going to climb people, by the way. And so will the values of guys like, I think, DJ Moore is wide receiver 20, Keenan Allen wide receiver 30-ish. Rome Odunze is going to climb up out of wide receiver 38 territory. And I don't know that that's like a horrible outcome for those guys. But Caleb Williams, I think if he stays, I think I want a couple shares while he's still
if he's
quarterback 15.
Yeah, if he stays there, absolutely. But he's not staying there. No,
he's not staying there. Right?
You should have seen the mess, the cleanup on Twitter after basically it was the total joy that people were expressing was
right. There are South Park memes that come to mind on this.
Exactly. But that's what I was thinking.
But I would say though, I keep thinking back to the Daniel Jeremiah line, franchise altering upside. I think if you're a Bears fan, you can start saying, I kind of see that, right? It's starting like for a franchise that has not had a good luck at quarterbacks, it looks like they may have landed the right one. And we'll see how he does in fantasy. Rome Odunze, top 24 fantasy wide receiver this year.
It's also very possible. I mean, people are talking about, Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison, but really Odunze belongs in the same tier as those three guys, and he is the best value of the three. He's also the best combination of, size, physicality, and route running among the three. He just may not be he's not the most technically proficient. That's Nabers. He may not be as, celebrated of a prospect. That's Harrison. But he could very well be as good or better than the other.
Might not be in a great spot. We'll see. Some of that depends on how the usage plays out between he and Keenan Allen. If he's on the field in two receiver sets, and then maybe there's a little more meat on the bone than we all expected. You brought up the name. You invoked my guy, Malik Nabers. Are you concerned about him working with Daniel Jones?
I mean, if Malik Nabers was just some schlub that, that they've been rolling out in the Meadowlands or in New York for years now, because they haven't had really a great wide receiver core, just kind of like basically a baseline level NFL wide receiver, then yes, I would be concerned with Daniel Jones. But Malik Nabers is not that. So when you hear, I'm talking to you, Josh Norris, because I much love to Josh Norris because because he said I'm still drafting him, but it is a concern that he's playing with Jones because he showed the 2 picks that were in the preseason. But let's put it this way: Malik Nabers is on par with AJ Brown as a quality of rookie that he is. And who did AJ Brown play with that was all that special in Tennessee when he was the number 8 fantasy wide receiver? There's some guys that are exceptional, and Nabers is that.
Like, even if you're not exceptional, you can overcome lousy quarterback play. I asked Adam Thielen about this. No, I watched Adam Thielen play last year. He was wide receiver 12 through 12 weeks, playing with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in Bryce Young last year on the lowest scoring offense. He was wide receiver 12. He's Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
He's not Malik Nabers, right? So it just maybe a better comparison, because we've heard the comps to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, right? I mean, in terms of what Malik Nabers is capable of. Well, let me remind you, Justin Jefferson last year, last 5 games of the season, came back from the hamstring injury, played with a combination of Joshua Dobbs, Jaron Hall, and Nick Mullins. What was he over that span? He was a wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
Chill, people. You're going to be fine. Price is still right on Malik Nabers for me. Feeling that all day long. Jalen Nailor and Olamide Zaccheaus. Are they draftable?
Fuck no. But they
watch waiver wire watch.
Yep, and we're trying to help you understand. You need to compile one of these lists. Just do that, because when you have them on there, then you can kind of cut through some of the hype that's going to happen in weeks, between weeks 1 and 4, where everyone's going crazy over the waiver wire, and it's over somebody like Carson Steele because he had he has one big run or scores a touchdown, and people are thinking, oh, this is the next dude, somebody like that. Nailor is a speedster who's shown up in camp well. For the past 2 years, just injuries have been kind of an issue, and now with Addison maybe possibly missing some time, Osborne's gone, he's pretty much the lock to be the number 3 guy. I know that we're not excited about the quarterback play with J.J. McCarthy gone for the year and Sam Darnold in there, but you could see where Nailor ends up getting some really nice looks and ends up getting kind of some high efficient plays that lead to big plays. And Zaccheaus, listen, Zaccheaus is one of those guys that, Drew Lieberman, the wide receiver coach to Brandon Ayuk and Dontavian Wicks, and someone who's been very influential for me in terms of how I grade receivers over the past 5 to 6 years, and I've had some pretty good success with that. He's talked about Zaccheaus as someone that really should have started in Atlanta, and he forced his way from being either a late round or UDFA there to being their deep threat. And that wasn't even the strength of Zaccheaus' game. His strength of his game was really in space out of the backfield as kind of more of a slot receiver who wasn't a big play, used as much as a big play slot at Virginia. And now you're seeing him more as a deep threat. And while he only had 10 catches with the Eagles last year, the Eagles were not a 3 wide receiver offense in terms of how they were going to distribute that ball. And he had 10 catches for 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. The talk that he's going to be the wide receiver 2 or could be ahead of Jahan Dotson tells you how good of a camp he's had.
Or how bad of a camp Jahan Dotson's having.
Or how bad a camp. But also, I would say, based on Zaccheaus' history, when we look at a number of players out there who, like Thielen, like Ed McCaffrey, like I have a list of like 4 or 5 guys that I mentioned, but I can't remember all of them. But there's a number of guys out there who started with slow in the first 2 to 4 years of their career. Derek Mason is another good example, who ended up becoming really good. And I think that Zaccheaus may not. We should be open to Zaccheaus possibly being that guy. That's really all I'm saying.
So I'll just say, Luke McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown also mentioned as candidates for that wide receiver 2. If one of those guys is wide receiver 2, including Jahan Dotson, there's going to be some interest there playing with Jayden Daniels and opposite Terry McLaurin, who defenses will be keying on more often than not. So watch them all. Don't draft them, because probably you're going to be disappointed if you draft the wrong. No, you'll definitely be disappointed if you draft the wrong one. And right now, we just don't know. So we'll keep an eye. Maybe the third preseason game will be telling. There's another name out there floating around, George Holani. Is this a name you should know? Seattle running back, in case you don't. He's buying with who? Kenny McIntosh for the running back 3 role there. And so I just want to preface this. I talked to Bob Condata from the Seattle Times the other night. He told me to forget about Zach Charbonnet. He said, like, as long as Kenneth Walker's fine, you're not going to see anybody else. So that's his impression. I know fantasy managers out there, people invested in Charbonnet, would like to think otherwise. I don't know if they're going to be like very happy with the outcome. And I think people are maybe underdrafting Walker. But again, depth is necessary in the NFL because injuries happen. What do you know about Holani?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you just brought up about Charbonnet, because it also kind of jives with something that I noticed when I was researching running backs with RSP data and fantasy success rates. And Charbonnet, who I had a good grade on as a prospect overall, looking at correlations from my data over the past 6 years, Charbonnet was one of those candidates I looked at and said, his chances of hitting might not be as strong as his grade may look if we're going to go by the correlation data. So it's fascinating that they're saying, forget about him right now. I think you're going to be thinking more about, if we go by the performance last week or this weekend, Kenny McIntosh may be the guy who edges Holani out, and Holani gets cut, and he's going to be looking for work elsewhere. But the fact that he had a strong camp is notable, and it's something that, good size, good power, contact balance, speed and quickness, good movement, and really a very good pass catcher. There are a number of teams that could wind up with him, and he's a dynasty player to watch redraft. Probably not this year unless there's a ton of injuries. So I'd say fuck it unless he makes this roster.
Something Michael Sean Dugar from The Athletic pointed out is he's also done very well as a blocker. Those are little things you should pay attention to. Sometimes that might make the difference between making a team or not. Aidan O'Connell is going to make the team, but he's not going to be the starter. Gardner Minshew announced as a starter yesterday, Sunday, if you're watching this, not on Monday when we record. The spring buzz was basically that the job wouldn't be handed to Minshew, that Aidan O'Connell was going to be the starter and had to be beaten out. The job wouldn't be handed to Minshew. I believe that. I believe that's how Antonio Pierce saw it. But he was also open to Gardner Minshew. Look, I've talked to beat writer Hondo Carpenter, hyperbolic though he is, made the point, like, the reason Antonio Pierce, the players were advocating for him to come back is he's a football guy, right? You don't lose your job just because you sign somebody else. The other guy has to take it. I will say Aidan O'Connell handed it to him with that interception. Like, if they were struggling with the decision and they were going to make it after Saturday night's loss to the Dallas Cowboys, then throwing a pick six to start the fourth quarter was probably maybe a determining factor there. Do you think it was a politically motivated coaching ploy all along?
I think not as in like they weren't going to give O'Connell the job and at all. But I think that the way you explained it is perfect, Bob. I think it is just you don't take away a guy's job once he has it, just without a competition. And I also think that it was probably smart of Antonio Pierce to give the job to Minshew right away, because here's the thing. I know you're going to see some good football writers who know the game say, well, Minshew this week didn't look that great either, and he had a number of balls bounce off Dallas Cowboys' hands, and that's true. But here's the thing. Is it better in today's NFL to start your young player for him to fuck up and then bench him and for him to wonder if he's ever going to get a job back and you've written him off and he doesn't get a chance to watch a veteran maybe beforehand? Or is it better to give the veteran who knows that if he doesn't work out in Las Vegas, he'll be somewhere else because he's already established who he is and what he can do and what his limitations are, but what his upside offers? And you put him in and let O'Connell continue to work at the things he's not so good at and have a veteran who's probably very cooperative with him, who's like a coach on the field, and a coach in the quarterback room and a coach, and help him develop more so that now we're looking at intermittent playing time as opposed to let's just shove him in here, and now we're 0-5. Nobody wants him. The owner doesn't want him. Overreaction time, and now he's forever flushed down the toilet of quarterback potential. That's not the way it works. So I believe this is the right call.
I feel that like there's something to be said for a guy with experience, and Minshew has plenty of starting experience. O'Connell has some too. He was 5-5 last year as a starter. So I think what you said is exactly right. Okay, I'm gonna get all excited here because Xavier Worthy is very fast, and he made some big plays.
Yes, yeah.
And he made some big plays. Will he deliver as a massive deep threat in KC this year? Feel it or fuck it.
Fuck it. Now,
right.
from a fantasy point of view, fuck it. From a football point of view, totally feel it, because he is going to be a massive enough deep threat that there's going to be 2 or 3 guys reacting to Worthy sprinting across the field in the vertical realm, and that's going to open up the middle of the field for other players. And that's what Worthy's going to bring to you. Is he going to give you some play in best ball leagues where you're going to have huge weeks from him that way? Absolutely. But there's a reason why the rest of the league got shut down after defenses decided that they were going to shut down the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill. And if I remember correctly, when they traded Tyreek Hill after his season kind of started to go downhill a little bit, the end really wasn't there for Tyreek Hill the past 2 to 3 years, has it? It's just that opposing defenses decided that in this offense they're going to shut down the deep game with 2 deep. I don't care how fast you are. It's very unlikely you're going to win against 2 deep on a consistent basis unless you're Randy Moss and you have a great run game in the New England Patriots, and then you can kind of do some things that are unbelievable. But I think Worthy will be a solid fantasy play, like a wide receiver 3, maybe a flex play with some huge weeks. But I don't necessarily see him as a wide receiver 2 unless they're throwing a lot to him underneath. So if the volumes start there early, get on that train. But if it's just big play fest, no.
But there's people who benefit from that too high safety look, right? Like there are other guys like Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce. And by the way, I don't know if you are out there following our colleague Drew Davenport on the Twitter at Drew Davenport FF, an attorney by day.
And a photobomb master by night, apparently.
And a great time at Canton at the Fantasy Football Expo. But he hasn't found where the case is filed. The civil case is ended in December, but we've seen recently the NFL puts off disciplining players until they've gone through the system. And so I don't know that our anticipated suspension of Rashee Rice is going to come to pass. And if so, drafting him as a wide receiver 4 might end up returning some value for you.
Good point.
Interesting note there. Drake Maye. I pounded my table. So excited to say his name. Drake Maye should start in September. Feel it or fuck it.
Oh, fuck that.
I don't even know why I asked that question.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm predictable with some of these things. Sure.
And you're also correct in this case.
Yeah, I mean, come on. He had some good moments last week, but he's, again, vanilla defenses, with, a lot of personnel changes on both sides of the ball. Preseason, we'll talk about this more, but I mean, preseason isn't the thing where we're going to take this data as gospel. And I think that Maye probably just needs a little bit more time. He needs more time to really sit and observe and learn these defensive looks and disguises and get better at that and get better with his footwork. So I know that people are like, they're going to show isolated plays where the footwork's good. That's great, but give him the opportunity to really get it down to a level where he can operate cleanly in difficult looks that boggle his mind. Because
I want to throw this out here and see what you think. Yeah. Quickly, Phil Perry from NBC Sports. I was reading a piece by him, and his thought on this was, Drake Maye is going to be perfectly fine. He's going to be a great quarterback at some point, but he's not been immersed in the system, right? Like Alex Van Pelt's system requires a quarterback's feet to be in a certain spot when he gets rid of the ball. The timing is very important. Where you are, how you're standing, when you let go of the ball. That was not the style of offense he played in college. It's going to be an adjustment period. Meanwhile, Jacoby Brissett started 11 games for in an Alex Van Pelt offense in Cleveland, and it was quarterback 15 over that span. for our fantasy purposes, I think I know who I would like to see start the season. And look, I have great hope for Drake Maye, but he's not a fantasy asset for me. And not many Patriots should be fantasy assets for you this year, based on that whole situation.
There's a lot of hybrid looks that are going to get thrown at a quarterback, and when you start to get confused and have to think about what you're seeing, the things that the baseline skills that you have, like footwork, if they're not rock solid, they slow down and get sloppy, and then that ruins your whole game. And I think that that's where Maye is at, is that it's not solidified enough for him to be in these situations. So I'm with you. And Phil Perry's a hell of a gospel singer, but probably not the one that you're talking about.
Not the one I'm talking about. He's a hell of an NBC sports reporter. So we got all excited about Caleb Williams, and we should have. My earpiece fell out. That's horrible. And we maybe are easily overlooking one, Tyson Bagent. Does he have a future in the NFL now that Caleb Williams is around?
Yeah, he had a future. You could see it last year. I mean, how he performed last year coming from a small school program and holding his own in that Bears offense that didn't have the weaponry that it's going to have this year. I would not be surprised if, Tyson Bagent isn't a Raider next year or on another team as the starter, or at least getting a year audition as a starter. Very good athlete, good in and out of the pocket, someone that has a very strong arm. I honestly think the Bears are going to wind up dealing him at some point and getting a nice haul out of the equation. And it will be hilarious, but it very possible if Caleb Williams does get hurt this year. I would not be shocked at all if Tyson Bagent puts up starter numbers for the Bears during the time that he's in the lineup. So he should be also high on your waiver wire list among quarterbacks who might get a shot if injuries occur.
Yeah, from one of these things is not like the other department. Would Chris Brooks be better off if he's cut by the Miami Dolphins in that crowded backfield?
Fuck yes, because he's not a great fit in that system because they want speed, but he's still ripping off big runs and making big plays as a receiver. He is a good special teams guy, and he does give them that. He does give them that big club driver if they want it, so that they can put it into the end zone. In short yardage, or maybe he's more of a putter. He's an oversized putter, but I'm not much of a golf guy. But he's he can definitely offer that dimension. But imagine if he were in Cleveland, if Nick Chubb doesn't work out and they decide that these veterans are a little overpriced and we can get a younger guy. Chris Brooks would be a great fit in a system like Cleveland, or a great fit as that third running back in Tennessee to pair up, or the second one eventually to pair up with Tyson or Tyjae Spears when Tony Pollard goes away. Or there's a number of teams like that this is someone that reminds me of, like Mike Anderson, you mentioned him, or a more fully dimensional Gus Edwards, a better receiving back with more moves than Gus Edwards.
Matt Waldman likes Chris Brooks. Matt Waldman is not alone in this, having spoken with multiple Dolphins beat writers. This is the same discussion they have. They think he's a fantastic player, caught in an offense that he's not maybe an ideal fit for, or that he's behind players who are
or Detroit.
Far more Detroit. Okay, fair enough. That would work. Detroit, though, they've got Sione Vaki. Why would they need Chris Brooks? They already have one of those.
You're right. That's true. They probably do.
Is Vaki a draftable fantasy option?
No, not this year.
Of course not.
Of course not. But the theme of this week's show, definitely is waiver wire guys to monitor, and he is absolutely one of those. Good receiver out of the backfield. You can, they've talked about all camp that you can see that he hasn't played the position a great deal, but he shows a lot of skill for it. Like, he's a natural at a lot of things that you would want a good running back to do. So he runs with power, has got some good movement. He's just going to have to figure out how to manage the game and make good decisions between the tackles on a consistent basis. And there are some people who are thinking, man, when David Montgomery's time is nigh, we may see that Vaki is the guy to replace him.
Okay, and I'm not against that waiver wire watch list. Many waiver wire watch list guys. Deneric Prince might be one of them. He's the backup. Is he the backup now? Is he moved ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, do we believe?
I don't know, because this is the fun thing about preseason, is oftentimes in these weeks you see the leader on the box score at this position ends up getting cut. It's almost like they get showcased or they get a chance to prove their worth and they go, okay, yeah, he accumulated good yardage. Dillon Johnson, Kimani Vidal, now we're looking at Deneric Prince, as part of that.
We've seen him before.
Yeah, we've seen that.
He's been taking cuts at this for a little while.
Yeah.
I want to just put in there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a little beat up early in camp. Maybe it's possible they're preserving him, knowing what they have in him. And
they're preserving Keontae Ingram, or they're preserving somebody else. Now, I think Prince probably makes a team over Ingram, but I don't know. You got Brett Veach also saying, don't forget about him back in May. Now, back in May is the time when you get the little pep talk from people. So we'll see.
I'm with you there. Not digging that deep into the Chiefs' offense, talented and productive though it will be.
Yeah.
Ray Davis, though, maybe a piece that is he a must-have backup in fantasy drafts?
Yeah, you need to draft his ass. That's not a guy you want to wait on the waiver wire for, because Ty Johnson is a good special teamer, and he can give you some work if you need it, especially on third downs, because he's a little more reliable than where Davis is at this point as a pass protector. But Davis's skills as a runner are a notch above and on par with a lot of starters in this league right now. So if James Cook gets hurt or struggles, or Davis just continues to improve quickly, he could force his way onto the field. I think he definitely could be a league-winning running back for you if injuries occur, and he may end up being a nice flex for you regardless.
Reasonable take. How about this one? Here, let me see if I can get you going. Jayden Daniels is Robert Griffin 2.0.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. I am totally feeling that. And some people are saying, oh, fuck that, but like...
No, but the good part.
I think this year he could be the good part. I think career-wise, he could be everything that Robert Griffin has been.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, well, come on,
man.
We're in that spot, like
eventually fired by ESPN even?
Yes, maybe so. I don't know. But
hard.
I don't know. Robert's probably got more personality. But I don't know Jayden's personality yet. So we'll see. But the big thing is they're both straight line runners who didn't always know how to protect themselves.
And by the way, so far this preseason has not shown any signs of having learned a damn thing about that. Dan Quinn said he's on double secret probation because of his failures to slide the first two preseason games.
We've brought this up before, multiple times. We brought up Austin Eckler telling a reporter publicly, I need to send a message to Jayden Daniels that you need to slide and give yourself up and don't take hits. That's my job. And he's still doing it. I'm telling you, and I don't think his processing is going to look any faster with more complex defenses. So, I think they're going to simplify things. You're going to see a lot of one read and maybe occasional two read things, and it may work this year. But where he's getting drafted and the way people are valuing him, I think they're going a little overboard.
I think maybe a little overboard. I also agree with something Dave Kluge, our colleague of Football Guys, put out on his Twitter feed, a lengthy thread on what he's learned to know over the course of his drafts. I agree with him. There are three quarterbacks that give you that league-winning upside. It's Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, and Jayden Daniels, all available at various price points. Richardson round 5, Kyler round 7, Daniels round 9 or 10. Right. So, but I think the quarterback position's deep enough in regular leagues, not super flexes or whatever, where you can maybe take a little bit of a chance on these high upside guys and still mitigate your risk with a steady Eddie, a veteran or a known productive player or a guy who could carry you week to week. If you're a late quarterback drafter, you might have got them. Might be interested in them anyway. I do agree with that notion that any of those three could end up, putting close to quarterback one numbers up. And I mean, Kyler Murray, we've seen him do it. Right, as a quarterback 2, I believe, in 2020 or no 2020. Yeah, he's been as high as quarterback 2. I think that was his second season as a pro, so maybe not 2020. But either way, and I mean, we saw Anthony Richardson last year. My heart beats still. I think the number Tristan Cockcroft from ESPN put out was 0.45 fantasy points per game per snap. That's last year. Compare that to Josh Allen, who was 0.36. Yeah. I mean, you see the potential of those guys, and I think Yes, it's going to cost you to try him out. Yes, there is risk associated with him. Also, yes, you can mitigate that risk. I'm all about that.
I'm all about Anthony Richardson. I'm all about Jalen Hurts. I'm also all about understanding that Robert Griffin back in the day was kind of more unique than the number of guys who can run now and offer that. So, and I don't know. I'm like, I think they're appropriately valued at this point. So I'd say Daniels gives you
Matt Waldman.
Daniels gives you the least upside of the three, but he's appropriately valued, so it's worth a shot.
This is feeler
so
fucking. Quit pissing in my cornflakes, Matt Waldman. All right. Xavier Weaver.
I thought it was Special K or total for you.
Whatever. Cardinals receiver Xavier Weaver. Is this a name to know? Unless, and let me start this one. No, unless you're in Scott Fishbowl, because he might actually be a good return man. Who maybe, if he sticks with the team, who knows what he can carve out as a role. But we're all going to be chasing return men in Scott Fishbowl come week 1 if return men are actually a thing.
Yeah, Xavier Weaver is someone you don't need to know now, but we just plant that seed in your head just because You're welcome. A good wide receiver. He's impressed in camp. He's made big plays, not just in the return game. They like his route running. And I think that he was undervalued. He probably would have been drafted in any other wide receiver class other than this one or the Mike Evans, Odell Beckham class of 2014. So he may have a future eventually, but it's not right now.
So we've already planted the Jordan Whittington seed. I think we're just watering a little bit here. Are we a believer in the man who leads the Rams in receiving yardage up to this point?
Well, I need another bowl to piss in, so let's just go ahead and fuck that.
You're gonna ruin my DeMarcus Robinson? Stop it.
No, I believe in DeMarcus Robinson.
Okay.
I'm just saying fuck. I'm saying fuck that with Whittington because again, Whittington's doing a nice job with the things that they're asking him to do, but I don't think vanilla defenses. How's he gonna perform? With Stafford making adjustments with defenses that aren't as vanilla. And I would say I'm still skeptical at this point. He's a former running back. He wasn't used at a level that got anybody's confidence really high on him at Texas. And I think that you're just seeing him do what he does well. And that's great. And maybe he has a future, but his future isn't in the present. We'll put it that way.
Fair enough. I would agree with all. I've agreed with most everything you said, except
I know it's kind of sickening.
Horrible Jayden Daniels downplaying us. So not gonna. So
that's all right. I'm gonna be on a Commanders podcast next week, so I'm sure they're gonna give me.
I'll be listening to that one.
Yeah.
One last one here. You watch a lot of college football games. I watch 0 of them. Well, maybe 1 or 2 a year on accident. Preseason games closer to college football than NFL football.
Yeah, I think right now. I think they are, and I think that's the thing maybe that we need to kind of consider so that we don't overreact to stuff. Because I remember hearing players often say in camp all the time, "Wow, this just feels like I'm playing in the SEC right now," and they think it's kind of easy, and then you see them struggle, and then the next year they're like, "Yeah, it was a big adjustment once the real game started." And I think that's part of it. Again, it's the vanilla coverages. We just pounded into your head. Vanilla coverages, slower players. Lots of changes in personnel, so there's not a lot of rapport, there's not a lot of disguises, there's not a lot of complexity. So if you're playing well right now, it just means that you've gotten the system down reasonably well, and you're playing the way that people would expect you to in this easy situation. But it doesn't mean that it's NFL football at the level that they're about to see in about 3 weeks.
Right. I always think back, to show my age. Travis Jervey, and he may still lead the NFL in preseason yards per carry at like 10.7 because he's super fast. They just pitched the ball outside. And he'd run around, and nobody on defense knew what they were doing because it's exhibition season. There was no game plan, so they didn't know what to expect. There was no game plan on the offensive side, so let's just make a couple plays. And Travis Jervey made them, and then once the season began, he would.
Brett Hundley, another Packer who did this. Led the teams in quarterback rating. Yeah. Right. So
same thing. I mean, Jeremy goes back to even Atlanta. I mean, he did it on multiple teams: San Francisco, true. Atlanta. So Green Bay. Didn't he have a lion in his house with who was the other running back that he played with? Oh man, they had a lion in their house, and it.
I don't know. I keep thinking of Damian Pope. I think that's another one that always tends to do well in the preseason.
Oh, the tiger. Him and LaShawn Johnson. They had a pet. No, okay, pet lion named Nala.
LaShawn Johnson.
LaShawn Johnson.
No, that's another one too. Those were two guys that were definitely like rockets with basically no compass. Yeah. Fantastic.
They owned a pet lion after previously being dissuaded from owning a monkey.
Talk about frying pan into the fire, but okay. But then again, Melanie Griffith, she was thrust into the fire as a kid.
Don't watch that movie, man. What is that movie? Where they're all getting eaten by lions?
I don't know. It's probably a favorite one, but from Bloom. These are the types of movies that Bloom recommends on a regular basis.
Dude, I watched part of that, and I go, "This is so horrible. I can't watch." They were literally in a lions were literally eating people on the set. It was
70s. It was like 70s house at the end of the street, kind of Wes Craven-ish, unintentional Wes Craven type of lore from the 70s almost.
I've got to look it up. Roar, it's called.
Roar, that's it. Yeah, and that was her real life as a kid.
That was her real life as a kid.
Yeah, that tells you
no lions were harmed in the making of today's episode of the Feel It or Fuck It podcast. We were glad you came by. We'll see you again next Monday, or maybe we'll have a little more information. But week 3 of the preseason is when you see a little bit. You start seeing maybe some of the starters. We'll see if that changes this year. I'm kind of with you. I think everyone's kind of over exhibition, and by everyone I mean the NFL. And we're just gonna have to get used to the ensuing havoc that arises in September from teams.
That's the best time.
Right. That's how teams, like I keep saying this, like October is the new September, right? Because September is the new August. And so we'll see.
I love panic in the streets, then that's what we're going to see coming up in September. I can't wait.
All right, young man, let's get to work. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Love you.